Hey everyone, today what we're looking at is not so much a product, I guess it's a product review, I guess we can, I guess we could consider it that. But we're actually looking at the Synapse diverter valve. Now this is a different valve than what most people, actually I don't think I've seen anybody actually run this on the Genesis Coupe yet. So everybody else usually uses their SB valve, and this is what they call their DV valve. It is a little bit of a different design than what most people have seen, and we're going to kind of cover why I've decided to go this route rather than, I guess you could say, the status quo. So let's get it opened. And first off, the reason we're doing the film like this, kind of going back to the way I used to do films, is because these parts are really small and I want to make sure you guys get a nice good look at things. So inside the package, this is the, you should probably note because there's different packages that you can buy. This is the DV001A.024. And what makes this a bit different is it comes not just with your Recirc fitting, but it also comes with a weld-on aluminum fitting that kind of goes onto your piping. Okay. And then it's got some, I don't know if these are stainless or if they're like nickel-plated brass or something, but they're hose barbs. And you've got the actual diverter valve itself. You've got your hose kit for if you're using their press fit connections, which I won't be using that. And then you've got your, what they call a tuning manual. So why would I opt for this versus the standard valve? Okay, well, what this valve does that the other one doesn't do is this one can be run in a push or pull mode, and what that means is how the valve sits. So is the boost being used to push help push this open, or is boost being used to help keep this closed? Okay, so that's the difference between push and pull. That really only matters to different kinds of setups where factory valves are done whatever. The Genesis Coupe standardly uses it in a push mode, and then it's spring tension to keep it closed. So does this, what I guess we could say changes this between its counterpart? This one is numerically doesn't hold as much boost, but it holds up to 60 psi, so that's, more than enough. Now that is absolute 60 psi. That is not atmospheric factored into there. That is an actual, you can have 60 pounds of boost in your system with this valve. And then you can run, from what I understand, quite a bit of vacuum on it as well. The other thing is this is actually quite a bit smaller. This is about half the size of their standard valve. Okay, and it can be mounted quite readily, and I'm actually going to be using this as a Recirc valve. With the other one, their particular placement for it means you have to run quite a long hose. I'm not going to be running that hose, so not a big deal. The other thing that this valve does is it allows for a lot more adjustability, and what I mean by adjustability is there is different springs that you can buy to put in here. There's quite a bit more that you can do with this valve versus the other one. The other one is kind of a plug and play, forget it kind of valve. This one allows you to run different kinds of springs for fast reaction and slower reaction. You can run the different ports in order to compensate for turbo spool. So fast spooling turbos will run off of port B versus slow spooling turbos will run off of port A, or you can run it off of A and B, that kind of thing. So just a lot more, I guess you could say, selectability in what you can do with this. This valve has response rate a little bit slower than the other one, versus the SB. This one's only 25 milliseconds, whereas the other one I think is like 15 or 14 or something like that. That response rate is so minuscule in difference that I'm not that worried about it. The one thing that I did learn about, when I was shopping for these, that I learned from Synapse, that I haven't seen mentioned anywhere before, is the preload on this actually changes the speed at which it refreshes. So the more preload you put on it, the stiffer the spring is, but it also means that you'll go from 25 milliseconds all the way up to 100 millisecond response. Now 100 millisecond is still a ridiculously fast valve. That is still faster than everything else on the market. But it's just good to know that there are certain aspects of these valves that I didn't know. The other thing is this one is a lot more customizable. You can buy these different caps in different colors. I've just got a standard black one, but I will be ordering a blue one eventually. And I might need to get one of the different spring to go in here because of how quickly my turbo likes to rebuild boost. So yeah, it's just there are reasons why I've decided to go for this, aside from just the fact that I'm able to recirc. So this fitting here is the Recirc Flange, or the mounting flange, sorry. The Recirc Flange is the other one. And what this does is it's just an aluminum. You can get this in stainless steel or you can get this in aluminum. It is just a weld-on flange that to put on your aftermarket boost piping or intake piping, whatever you choose to do with it. So rather than buying a specific, special Synapse pipe, like a lot of people do, I just have to go get this welded. Now, something I wanted to bring up, because this has actually been asked about, a couple of times with the SB valve, is how do I put this O-ring in? Now, according to Synapse, with their new style valve, you put the O-ring in the fitting, and then, or in the valve, and then you mount this. This groove here, this groove right there, you don't use for the O-ring. You don't put the O-ring there. Apparently in their old style system, you used to put the O-ring and then you put like the clamp and what have you, but apparently they ran into too many issues where the O-ring was breaking, and the last time I installed a Synapse valve we had that problem. We had to go buy one. So completely understand why they changed that. And according to them, the reason you don't just install this on the flange and then seat the valve on top of it like that and then put it in is to reduce tearing of the O-ring again. So they recommend putting it on this lip. You can kind of see like a little black lip right there. You put the O-ring there, rather than on the pipe. And then lastly, you have the Recirc port. They do have one for the SB, but it, like I said, it's really kind of complicated. So unless you're willing to buy one of these fittings down here, this is kind of useless to you, because you'd have to move it to the hot side, to do it. And that just makes it quieter, to be honest. There is no, on the Genesis Coupe, there is no pro or con to recircing other than noise. Okay? None. As for hot side versus cold side, that is one of the most debated topics, in all tuner communities. And third-party companies and reviewers have never found a difference between hot side and cold side. There's no horsepower gain, there's no reaction time gain, nothing, okay? And that whole argument of it protects the throttle body, you need it close to the throttle body to take the surge, blah, 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 blah. Okay, when the air hits the throttle body when it closes, the air has to hit the throttle body for vacuum to start to build, because the process happens at the same time. As you're building vacuum, the boost is hitting the throttle body. Okay, so you've already gone past that point. All right. The aspect of hot side mounting is that you're keeping the air in the charge system. So the stuff that you've already cooled is just continuing to be cooled. The stuff that's in the intercooler has basically stopped moving. Okay, and you're not you're recircing it at the turbo or before the intercooler, and you're not getting a pressure wave coming back. Okay, because any pressure wave that comes back is still going to hit that valve. Okay, it's not going to hit the turbine, it's going to hit that valve before it goes out. 2013s are hot side mounted and they recirc to the intake, and that's all I'm basically doing is cloning that but using a better valve. The negative aspect, I guess you could say, is, well, there is none. Actually, there is no negative to hot side, there is no negative to cold side. As long as you have a properly functioning diverter valve, whether it's mounted on the turbo, after the turbo, before the intercooler, after the intercooler, before the throttle plate, as long as it's functioning correctly, it's all going to do the same thing. Going to like an HKS or anything like that, they're glorified noisemakers at that point. All you're doing is making a blow-off valve sound. I'm recirculating mine to get rid of as much of that noise as possible, okay? Because I really don't actually enjoy my car sounding like, well, some days I do, some days I don't. But this isn't going to get rid of the noise completely by recirculating. It's just going to lessen it, I guess you could say. So, yeah, that is the basics of the kit. This particular kit. The hose, these are hardline hoses. They're like a mixture of a nylon type, like silicone type thing that's flexible, but it's rather stiff. That allows it to maintain its shape during boost as well as vacuum, which is really important. They've got the two different fittings here for how you mount it. They've got their unique one-off Y style. So I'm going to be using traditional silicone boost vacuum line, and I'm only going to be running off of the one port because I need the faster response, and that's what Synapse recommended I do when I called them. So you guys can buy all this stuff or this particular thing from Unique Performance. So thank you, Rob, for sending it over, and thank you guys for paying attention and checking out another product. So we will see you guys in the next video. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. The link's below.